A negotiated political transition remains Syria's best chance to avoid a further descent into chaos. And I think it is clear that time is an important component of this. The longer it goes on and the more disorganized and ad hoc that it is, the greater the prospect that the very people you least want to see involved become more engaged. The greater the prospect that radicals have an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. The faster it were to change, and the more orderly it were to change, the less prospect there is for the kind of disruption that threatens the region and that empowers the very people that you least want to see empowered. That is something that ought to weigh heavily, I think, on our Russian friends. And I would hope, because I believe they have the greatest ability to be the game changers here. And so I think we need to keep engaged very, very aggressively in our diplomacy and in our efforts to try to persuade everybody to see what is in fact, everybody's similar interest here. But with Assad employing a scorched earth policy, the longer his regime stays in power, the deeper Syria's plunge into sectarian civil war is likely to be, and clearly the more dangerous it is for all of the interests that many, many countries share in that region.
But even if direct military engagement could accelerate an acceptable conclusion, it would not be cost or risk free, and therefore it raises the question of whether we or others have adequate strategic interest to accept the risks and the costs. I think largely because of Syria's alignment with Iran, the conservative Sunni regimes of the region have a strong interest in Assad's fall. Similarly, the newly democratizing Arab nations have a similar interest, one that both secular and Islamist parties can share, since both Democrats and Islamists can both expect to increase their influence in a post-Assad Syria. The United States and its European allies also have a strong interest in Assad's fall, again largely due to that regime's alignment with Iran. Syria provides the main bridge through which Iran is able to support Hezbollah and Hamas, influence Lebanon, outflank its Sunni Gulf adversaries, and threaten Israel. Absent that bridge, it will be much more difficult for Iran to support any extremist groups in the Levant, and without an ability to do that, Iran would retain little practical means of damaging Israel.
Will the American people support an intervention? And I think it's true. And you would know this better than I, because you have constituents that express this. But the American people seem to me to be war-weary, particularly of wars in the greater Middle East. 10 years on, the longest wars in our history, as you said, a huge price paid in both blood and treasure. People are not ready for another intervention in the Middle East. And I think that's why there's a constraint that operates on the behavior both of President Obama and of Governor Romney in terms of the positions that they articulate in this situation. But as the situation deteriorates, and if we see the kind of humanitarian disasters that we fear, that is massacre on a large scale, or use of chemical weapons for the purposes of ethnic cleansing, then I think the American people will reach the point where they say the United States has to do something about that.